bet you know something burning in your soul that you'd like to do, and you are one email away from that.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to a bonus episode of a live podcast of my May event, Conversations with Passion and Purpose, with my special guest, Cyndi Kane. It's basically the Q&A with Cyndi and then some questions after from the women in the audience. And it was a lot of fun. It's a great way to come together to connect, learn, and grow. My upcoming event will be in September with special guest Amy Siegfried, co-founder of Last Night's Game. So if you are interested in coming to a live podcast event, please sign up on my email. You can go to my website, sharingpassionandpurpose.com, and sign up to be on my email list, and you'll be in the know. So I hope that you enjoy hearing this live podcast that I do with Cyndi in May.
So she went from Good Morning America to my living room
Yeah.
next week.
And your living room's a lot prettier than America's set, by the way.
Yeah, you're
Can
very
you guys hear?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
This is the first time we haven't used microphones, so I'm hoping, you guys can hear. Okay, so this topic, it kind of caught me by surprise because Cyndi just, I think, has it all figured out. And so when we were brainstorming topics, she said, what about no plan, no problem? And I thought, okay, let's do it. And that, I have gotten more comments from people saying, that resonates with me so much because everybody doesn't have it all figured out. And the majority of people probably don't. So this
Let's
is
take a little
perfect.
poll. Like, how many people feel like you're just like got this plan and you're working it and you're doing it?
Nobody.
You have to say. Anyone? Oh,
Not one person is
No,
going to raise their hand.
okay. Yeah. Way to go, you guys. Okay. I think there's some of you out there that you just don't want to look like your teacher's pet or something.
Okay, so I thought we'll just go ahead and have you kind of tell us a little bit about your story because Cyndi started out at OSU, got married, and moved to Pawhuska, Oklahoma.
And it wasn't cool back then. That was in the 80s.
So you made it cool. You made it. So she didn't have an overarching end goal, but she has accomplished so much. So I did send out her bio. She's been a radio host, an entrepreneur. We'll talk more about that. This cookbook, she's an author. So there have been so many things that are really cool that she has accomplished. But what does it look like if you could just kind of tell us your story about how you've accomplished, what you've done?
So I thought it would be so boring to just get up here and talk about myself because I don't want to talk about myself. But I'm sort of obligated to, say a few things. But what I most want to do is breathe life into wherever you are and whatever you're pursuing to give you sort of that push to do the next thing in your life. So how many of you were here last month? Oh, good number. Okay, so Carol Matthews has a company called Hero Productions, and she's really known for this individual, but also a seminar that she puts on called just doing your mission, vision, and values. And so I kind of was laughingly like, well, I'm sort of the anti-Carol because I didn't really have a mission, I didn't really have a vision. But it really profoundly changed me, even though we've been friends for a long time. She's never done her magic on me. Like, I've never gone through her seminar or anything like that. So I just thought I was kind of like a little bumbling ninny, like I just fell into things. And what I learned from Carol's talk last time was actually there was a little bit more happening at a, cellular level, spiritual cellular level what I realized I was operating out of, because her thing is mission, vision, and values. And so the one thing that I had going for me is that I did have a real deep sense of my values. Like, what is, I apparently, even though some of my college friends are here, even though they'll know me as the girl that spent 4 years making prank phone calls before there was caller ID. I lived in the glory days, let me tell you. So that was really my goal during college. But somehow I married sort of a serious-minded person, like a legitimate human being. He's now your Chief Justice. So I was a complete ninny, and I married someone that was like really had it going on. So I sort of had to up my game a little bit. You know, like, I couldn't spend my married life making prank phone calls. So what I did kind of have a real deep sense of like what my values were. So that really has sort of what I realize now after Carol's talk was that I really did have some things shaping me and like pushing me, like decisions, you know, like you're at a crossroads. I'll give you an example. For example, so we moved, he had a family law firm, and so we moved there. And I was like, I had a teaching degree, it was sort of in the 80s, that was sort of the default position, you know, so I had a teaching degree, so I thought, well, I guess I'll teach school. And I didn't love that. And so, but I did want to, it was important for me to like support my husband. Again, it was the 80s. I would do that now though, you know, like I wanted to be available and supportive. And then it was important to me that my kids be really well educated. And so our school system at that time was not great. So it's sort of, because I had this value of having really well educated kids, that sort of forced me into homeschool. Which I used to say, what kind of person homeschools? You know, like, so, you know, never say that kind of thing, because then God tricks you into doing it. So, anyway, so, you know, the fact that I had that value of having really educated kids sort of pushed me into that direction. So really, when Nancy asks me questions, I'm going to try to pepper it with the value that I had that really was the outgrowth of that. Because I think if you really spend some time thinking about that blue flame, like whatever it is inside of you that you're like, yes, okay, that's me. Like that's who I want to be, that's where I want to be, that excites me. And just like figure out what that is and then just make decisions that support that. So the only reason I'm going to talk about myself is because I think I can like show you how that played out in my life. Did that answer your question?
Yes. Okay, I'm going to always say yes to you, Cyndi. Yes. Okay, so if you could kind of talk to us a little about your life and how what not having a plan has looked like for you.
Yeah.
Share those stories.
Right. So even though, you know, when you decide to homeschool, your life gets a little bit limited in a way. You know, obviously if you want to have well-educated kids, you can't be smoking cigarettes on the couch with your, TV tray. You know, like, you have to like do some things, right? So I started a homeschool community because I knew the blue flame inside me knew that I didn't want to be like lonely and alone with these children. So I needed buddies. Like my friends were like of critical importance to me. Like that is a high value to me. And so I thought, okay, well I don't know anybody in Pasco that's homeschooling, and I thought, well, I'm gonna have to go to the next bigger town to like start a homeschool community. So that decision, because I was based on, I needed comrade. Like I like to collaborate. I like to link arms with people, and I love my friends. So that one decision really changed my life. You know, like my friendships now, my deepest friends are people that I was in the trenches with homeschooling. Well, I got a few others that didn't homeschool me, but you know what I'm saying. So that really was a factor. So homeschooling was sort of the anchor to my life. But I always had like a little entrepreneurial thing happening. Like I didn't want to just completely be known as, you know, somebody's mother or somebody's wife. You know, like I wanted an identity. So before homeschooling, I did have a clothing store. And so I did know a lot. I like markets and, you know, like I would go all over markets all over the place. So when my friend Ree opened the mercantile, she asked me to help her get the retail side of that started. So that decision jump-started. You know how in life one thing leads to another. So I call myself an accidental entrepreneur because while I was at market with Ree, back up. Sorry. I didn't rehearse this. So when my husband was appointed to the Supreme Court, I had to do like a reception. And I'm a cheapskate. Like paying for like a big catered thing was like, this was not tax dollars, you know, like this is out of our bank account. So I was like, okay, I can do part of this. So, but I also wanted it like pretty and flashy, looked really nice. So of course you go to the internet, and so there was a woman online, reluctant entertainer, and her whole shtick, her whole gig was she did these really awesome charcuterie boards with these Pier 1, these enormous round boards, right? And so I thought, okay, I'm going to do that. So I bought these Pier 1 boards, and, you know, I got my daughter to do it because I can't make things look pretty like that. And so anyway, so that's kind of how I had that. My cheapskateness made me like know this person. So I didn't know her, but I followed her. So then I was at market with Ree, and I heard on the news, or for Ree, reading from the market, I heard on the news that Pier 1 was going into bankruptcy. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, what is reluctant entertainer going to do? Like her whole thing is about this big board. And I happened to be at market, and I thought, I bet I know someone around here that can make a board for her. So I emailed her. Like, this is where you get in fact, I want all of you today. I bet you know something burning in your soul that you'd like to do, and you are one email away from that. I'm not kidding you. One email, one text, one phone call where you just go, hey, I have this idea, wondered if blah, blah, blah. Like, it can change your life. And I want you to message me on Instagram how that one thing changes everything. So I emailed this woman. She happened to know Ree. They were sort of blogging buddies back in the old days. So I had a little bit of credibility. I didn't look like a complete wacko. And so I said, I think I could have this board made for you. And so I really wanted, she goes, okay, yeah, I need that because my business, my whole model is going down the tubes here. So I had a value. I really wanted them made in America. This was in 2019. So by the time that it all came out, thank God they were made in America. I found an old Vermont company of craftsmen, and we now have what we call, so then I had to build a company around it because she didn't want to have, be selling these boards. So now that's why I have this board. House of Hyacinth is my company name. And she, if you want to see what they look like, go to Reluctant Entertainer because she's the one who really does these splashy layouts and that sort of thing. So I'm not really capable of that. So that kind of led to this little company, So one thing sort of leads to another, and it really is just an email or text away for you guys. So let me know what you impulsively do this afternoon.
That is such good advice.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does the cookbook fit in to all of that?
Oh, right. Okay, so
Everybody has it.
yeah, you have my cookbook. Yay. So, as I mentioned, I'm a cheapskate. And as I mentioned, I always like to be, my mom, when she was a child, was in the Depression, and her father died. So her mother was a widow in the Depression and had 4 little kids. So she was very resourceful, very frugal, resourceful, these were scary times. So I grew up with a mom who was always sort of like repurposing things. Like she was always just very resourceful. So that was in my DNA. And then I started homeschooling, and those kids want to eat 3 meals a day. So I had kids to teach. I didn't want to be like the cafeteria lady constantly. So I just over time sort of innately developed this method where I think that people spend too much time trying to create meals from the ground up every time. And so it's a way of sort of always having components that you're extracting and moving forward. So it's arranged according to weeks. And it's especially great if you have kids at home. If you are just like a empty nester, like do it in half maybe, it's a third to a half. These will probably feed like 6 people. But it's still smart, so I think it's really, if you're gonna be healthy and keep a normal weight and, save some money, really, unfortunately, I don't know of a way to do that other than eating at home a good bit at a time. So I hope it helps people do that, where you're just sort of always making things that save forward, that's the name, to another meal. So,
Asian lettuce wraps.
Asian lettuce wraps.
My picky son's
Oh, yay.
once a week.
Really?
Yeah, he loves it.
Even still? Wow.
He only eats like 5 things. It's wild.
Well, I'm honored. I'm honored. Wow. Okay.
So, and you lost weight when you were doing the testing for this cookbook.
Yeah, I've gained it back, but
So
don't, this isn't what
So one of the things, you're adorable. So one of the things I thought was interesting is this isn't her first attempt at a cookbook. So I don't want anybody to get discouraged. If something doesn't work out the first
Right.
time, then, just again, it's important to keep trying and keep trying different and new things. Sometimes timing is everything, or talking to the right person.
Absolutely.
But I'd love for you to share a little about that first cookbook.
Yeah.
Your first attempt.
Yeah, so Ree and I she lived out on the ranch, Ree the pioneer one. She lived out on the ranch, I lived in town, and I was kind of reminiscing on my drive up here. This was before texting. You young people don't even know life before texting, but we would legitimately email each other, because we have little kids, so we weren't on the phone all the time. So it had that ability to you emailed something and you could read it whenever. So we would email each other, and we were both kind of I would start out as an English major, or I finished as an English major. She was a writer, and so we would write, we would write a lot. And so we cooked up this idea, and we both were kind of hospitality minded, obviously, she was. And so we cooked up this idea about this cookbook. And at the time, this was before Martha Stewart went to jail. This was before the orange jumpsuit. And so we had this idea for a cookbook called I'll Never Be Martha. And it was really just inspiring people to have people over.
You need to do it.
Now. So we did a sample. I think probably the recipes are in, it's her, I remember it was her lasagna. And so we had this, back in that day, I think the internet was probably in its infancy, but there were no search engines. So we had to, I went to the library to find a list. There's a book, a writer's market book of publishers. Yeah. So I sent out all these typed letters to publishers, and then we had a stack of them. And now I have a stack of rejection letters that Ree and I, sometimes I pull these out and go, look at all of our rejections, So, yeah, so that's how it all started, was a big stack of rejections, which is, somebody could have seen that Ree was going to be a big thing, gotten in on that deal early, but, it's all, it's all timing. Sometimes I think in this life you have an idea that just maybe God plants in you, and it's for some time in the future. You know, you don't know what that time is, and sometimes you think, oh, that's not a good idea. But, you know, sometimes you may want to go back and revisit it.
I still think you should do the book. Somebody even said, still write that book. Whoever
That's
said that.
terrible.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think that would be a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
You never
We'll
know.
see.
So in this current book, though, that you have, there is a chapter on hosting a party. So you make a
right.
fervent pitch for hosting a party.
Yeah.
And I love a party, as you all probably know. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, there's one chapter where I just beg and plead with you, the reader, to host some people for dinner. It started out about twice as long, and my editor was like, okay, right, cut this back a little. This is like going on a little bit. So I am just very passionate about, nobody invites people into their home anymore. I think part of it is like this stupid Instagram, Pinterest culture where we think everything has to look a certain way. You know, everything's all shiny and pretty. You know, I will say my friend Carissa Miller here, she has CC and Mike Creative, which is the best Instagram ever. And she is one of very few people that like keeps it real. Like you see a beautiful design project, but you also see her kids' bedrooms, which are a crime scene. It's a hellscape in there. It is fantastic. And so I just think we have this skewed view of like how things should be. Like get rid of all that should stuff. Like if you have people that you want to spend more time with, just invite them over. And if you can't, if you're not, I promise you, message me on Instagram and I will walk you through any of these meals to do that. So you all, that's the second thing we need to do this afternoon, is figure out who you're going to invite for dinner and do it, and I'll help you with your menu. Because really, like all the studies now, all the things about living a healthy life, I mean, I really think you can eat all the Twinkies you want if you have good community and connections with people. Like if you have people in your life, that's a huge aspect of your health. And so it's not, but you have to make some effort. You know that saying, if you want to have a friend, you have to be a friend. Well, it's actually fun. You know, like you actually have to like do something about that. You can't just be in your house and go, oh, I wish I had some friends. So, and I think and here's the good news. Since nobody involved, okay, I want to ask a question. When was the last, how many of you all have been invited to someone's house for dinner in the last 2 months? Oh my gosh, you guys are great. That's fantastic. It's kind of unusual. That's really, honestly, really unusual. So, well done, you guys. Well done. You're in the right crowd with the right people. But if you haven't been invited to someone's house for dinner, then it behooves you to be that person. Because the good news is none of your friends are doing that. So you're going to look like a superstar. So the bar is very low. So now's the time to do it.
If this many people would fit in my house, I would absolutely have you guys in my home. I am serious because that is my favorite thing, to have somebody in my home or go to somebody's home. I think that's just my favorite. So anyway, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe at some
You
point.
need to buy.
Maybe at some point.
You need to buy a bigger house.
Yeah. Tell my husband that. Although we're empty nesters now, and I'm yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe if I move my living room furniture out, I don't know. Okay. So with the no plan, no problem topic, do you have one suggestion for people who have no idea what their next step is? And you know who you are. You know who you are.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent the last year. I'm Catholic, and we have what's called the Ignatian spiritual exercises. I know some Protestant people are doing that. It's kind of catching hold there. But it's really kind of a you can go on like a silent retreat for, a concentrated amount of time, but they also have this, it's called Retreat in Daily Life, where you sort of live it over 9 months. So over the last 9 months, and you don't have to do the spiritual exercises, but it's been a good waypoint for me to really learn to kind of get still and listen to what God is saying. Or if you're not a Christian, you're a higher power person, like everybody has like gut instincts, like I think you're just born with sort of some things that really fuel you. And I think if you don't have a plan and if life's not feeling great for you right now, just start kind of listening. Like if something sparks something in you, like start journaling that, like write that down. And I was never a journaler. This process is kind of, you have to be sort of like, that's part of it is journaling. And you can kind of look back over time and go, oh, I was feeling that made me feel that way. And so those things that really, like, you feel like they're moving you forward or getting you closer to God or making you feel some joy, like, just start kind of thinking more about that. Like, what is it about that? How could I do more of it? And sometimes I think people think that their whole life has to change. Like, you can take some really incremental little steps. Just like if you want to start a business, like just, like you can do it. Sometimes there's that whole concept of a side hustle. I used to listen to that guy's podcast. It's kind of fallen off my list. But there was I don't know if he's still around, but there was this guy that, I think his whole podcast was like something about a side hustle. And it kind of gives you ideas about how you can do things in a real, like, incremental way. Even your hobbies or whatever, Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
You know it did. So, okay, in wrapping up.
We're wrapping up?
Because I want to open it up to questions. I
Okay.
want to open it up to questions.
Okay, good.
So for me, in wrapping up, I'd like to know, or we'd like to know, what's next for you.
Oh, okay. Well, so this whole year that I mentioned of discernment, the one real takeaway for me is that I do things a little, sometimes I do things a little bit impulsively, like I'll just, like what I'm trying to tell you guys to do, like send out an email or something. Sometimes I do that a little too impulsively. So I've kind of learned to, like what I'm learning is when you're 62, it's not like your whole life spreads out. Like time compresses, So I'm like, I probably have just a few more good years in me. And so I want to be a little more purposeful. So I'm not jumping into my next steps personally, but one thing, so my kids are pretty much all grown. Oh, my youngest is 20. And he happened to be on American Idol a year ago, and he's been in Nashville, but he has this real passion for bringing songwriting back to Oklahoma, because everybody thinks you need to go to Nashville, and Nashville is sort of like oversaturated, and it's really like songwriting's in our Oklahoma DNA. So there's a restored firehouse in Pahuska that he's going to start doing these concerts with other songwriters. He's calling it Firehouse Sessions. So he's 20, back to the same age when I was making prank phone calls. so like he doesn't really think about all the like business details. So I'm sort of kind of helping him get that off the ground, and he's kind of in charge of the artistic musicians, like booking people and that sort of thing. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. So watch for that. If you follow me on Instagram, we're going to launch that this summer. I'm sure I'll post about that. So my Instagram is the real Cyndi Kane. So if y'all want to follow that, and you want to make the short drive to Pahuska, we'll do that like twice a month, probably ongoing. Hopefully, I think it'll be I'm a real passionate Pahuska person too, and so I think it'll be the next step in Pahuska's journey of tourism, because sometimes it's easy to just be a day trip, but if we keep people people there that are there till 10 or 11 at night. They probably will book an Airbnb. We've got tons of really awesome Airbnbs. So anyway, I think it'll be kind of, so that's my next move.
That's cool. So let me know if you want to go to Pawhuska.
Yeah.
And see, his name is
Phil
Philip.
Kane. Yeah,
or
Philip
Phil.
Kane. Well, I think his Instagram's Philip Kane, yeah.
Yeah, so look him up too and follow him because he is so talented. You guys, I watched him on American Idol, voted for him, and he's so good. He's so good. So you guys will enjoy hearing his music. Before we move on, does anybody have any questions for Cyndi?
Yes.
How did the hyacinth thing start?
Oh, good question. So when Rhea and I were emailing, she would put my name down, CYNDI, and that was the day when spell check would pop up, and there were two options that she could choose, cyanide or hyacinth. So she let me choose, and I didn't want to be the poison friend, so that's how that came out. Yeah. Yeah.
Autocorrect.
Right. Okay, what else? Yes.
What is your favorite thing you've done in your journey, from kids to businesses to friendships?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I would have to say that when I started my homeschool community, that has been really life-giving just because of watching those kids grow up, and then I'm still, the mother, going to everybody's weddings, and now they're having babies, and I'm sure all of you all that are teachers or work with young people know that. But yeah, that was probably it. That's a great question. Thank you. Yes, Carol.
Just a word, I think it's a really great story and shows one of your values about the illustrations on your cookbook.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So that's a great question, Carol. So one of my things that I value is I love to find people's talents and help them brainstorm and okay, what could you do with this talent? And I also one of my values really is beauty. I love art. I love original art. My brother was an artist, so I really value beauty. And I value originality. When I was growing up, my mother, I think if she got some little whiff that I was trying to be like some other girl in class, she'd be like, just for heaven's sakes, don't be like everyone else. Be yourself. And so I've always, it's always been important to me to be original, I guess. And so when I was doing a cookbook, I knew there would probably be the idea that, oh, this is Ree's friend, she's doing it, she's just trying to get in on this deal. And I really didn't want it photography driven because that she really pioneered that. She was kind of one of the first people that did that whole step-by-step picture. So I really wanted to have original watercolors. And so I was at the Pawhuska Chamber of Commerce banquet. This was before I really was serious about my cookbook. And I sat next to this lovely little woman, young woman. She had young kids. She was kind of introverted, and so she didn't really, if I had her talent, I would be saying, would you like to look at the paint like that? And so she was telling me about, at the time she was into textiles and stuff, and so I followed her on Instagram, and so she would post things. She was mainly doing, as I mentioned, textiles like knitting and sewing and such, but occasionally she would post a piece of her art, and her art was that she had these kids, and she sent them off to school, and she would create on their brown paper lunch bag this amazing illustration, only to be watered up in the trash at 12:15 p.m. And I was like, that woman needs a better outlet. Talk about throwing your pearls before swine, right? So that kind of tucked in the back of my head. And so, so when I had my cookbook and I needed an illustrator, I'm like, what that woman would do it. And she won the Oklahoma Book Award for illustrations. So that was so exciting to me. That was so great.
She won it from your cookbook?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the Oklahoma Book Award winner. Yep. Okay, so surely someone else has a question, or do you just want to quietly eat your cookies?
We have time for one more.
Yes, Julie, sorority sister.
Did your creativity start when you were young? Where did that come from? You know, what, did you always do that in your high school?
I'm not very manually dexterous, so I've never been able to like execute anything.
Like, except for food.
Well, no, but I can't make it really look pretty, like I think if you kind of expect, everybody's creative, and I think we put judgments on ourselves about, oh, I'm not creative. And because we think of it in like the visual arts or the musical arts, but if you think about it, like I think I was always a little bit of a dream. Like in my mind, I think things. So I think that's what it was, and I think at some point I realized that's a form of creativity, I guess. So that's an interesting question. I'll have to ponder it. Yes.
Who's your favorite college friend?
The two of you. Julie and Susan. Right.
That's a good answer.
Oh, wait, Courtney
I
has
have a
one.
quick question.
Yeah.
Would love to hear your top tip for hosting in your home. If you had to choose one.
Top tip. Top tip. Figure out a meal where there's not a lot of like cooking at last minute. Like don't make pan sauces and that sort of thing. Like, just have something that you pull out of the oven. Have your salad already kind of made and maybe just add a few things at the top. Keep it super simple. Like when people come over to my house, I never have dessert. Like, who needs that? We're all too fat anyway. So I never have dessert. Cocktails, I like cocktails. That makes the party fun. But if you're a teetotaler, have a virgin mocktail. Yeah, I would say that. Also, it's sometimes 6 is a good number. Like sometimes 4, unless you're like really know these people, sometimes 4 can get awkward unless you just have a real level of comfort with them. Sometimes 8 can be a little big, so you really, when you kind of dream up who's gonna be interested in what, like you think through what kind of conversations they'll have and what their points of connection. And you also, in advance, as important, I didn't realize I had so much to say about this. Thank you. Like in advance, like think about what questions you can ask that will draw them out, and like point out to them. Because sometimes people aren't good conversationalists, so you may have to go, oh, you two are both into Tai Chi or whatever. So, thank you.
You guys, good questions. Those are better than what I came up with. All the
No, they're
questions
not.
you guys are
No,
asking.
they're not.
That was awesome. Well, I wanted there to be some time at the end so your cookbooks can be personalized. So I saved just a little bit of time. So if you would like for Cyndi to autograph them, she'll be sitting up here, and then we'll just have everybody kind of form a line, and then you can get your cookbook.
And listen, you don't have to get your cook. I'm happy to, but like, it's totally unnecessary.
I even
Don't feel like peer pressure to do that.
Yeah. So let me, real quick, before we start, I'm going to kind of wrap it up. So I had initially said I want to have an event every other month this year, and I decided to take the summer off. So I'm going to have both of my kids home, sort of. My daughter has an amazing internship that she is going to be doing for 5 weeks, but they'll both be home. So I thought this summer I'm going to take a break, and then we'll resume again in September. So we don't have an exact date on that, but my next guest is Amy Siegfried. This information on the back, so you guys can see that, is the information about Amy, but she is absolutely incredible. She is the founder of Last Night's Game. Many people in here know her. She couldn't be here today because she's at Notre Dame for something, or is she jumping out of the airplane? I don't know, literally. So she is so incredible. And there are so many different accolades that she has. This does not even begin to scratch the surface because I needed room to do the QR codes for my amazing sponsors. But we're going to be talking about identifying your competitive edge and then also finding your key differentiator. So she said that is in her wheelhouse of what to talk about. So I want to make sure that, we highlight what she's knowledgeable in and an expert in. She is seriously incredible. So at the bottom, if you're not on my email list, you can scan this QR code. Thank you, Mackenzie Ann, for doing all the QR codes. You can scan that, get on my email list, and then be the first to know, because I do send out a discount code for the people who have attended. It's $5 off, which is a nice little bonus to do. And don't hurry off. I don't want you to hurry off. I still want people to meet and visit and connect while you're in line. And real quick, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge my sweet mother, because she's here. So Judy Nelson. And then my sister Jennifer is here, but I thought for Mother's Day she came in early. She's come, they both come to all of these. They usually sit at the back, and I said, come up to the front this time. So I'm thrilled to have you here. Happy Mother's Day. Yes, I love you. So thank you so much, you guys, for being here. This was incredible. You guys, please help me. Thanks, Cyndi. She is phenomenal. Thank you. So I'm going to grab a couple of Sharpies, and I even have a book that I want her to personalize. So anyway, feel free to form a line, but thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.